Some debts can't be paid with silver, only blood, and blood. Well, that's a currency everyone understands out here. Jedediah Stone spurred his horse, a dun-colored Mustang named Mercy, onward. Creaking saddle leather a steady rhythm beneath him. The canyon wind howled, a mournful sound that echoed the ache in his bones. He squinted, the sun a brutal hammer against his brow. That's all he had to reach the high pass before Silas Cobb's men cut them off. He patted his saddlebag, feeling the worn leather beneath his fingers. Inside, tucked amongst his meager supplies, lay the tintype. A young woman, barely more than a girl, with eyes that held both fire and a deep, abiding sadness. Cobb's daughter, gone these past 5 years. Why did he carry it still? A promise, whispered on a deathbed. A burden. The metallic click of a Winchester lever broke the silence. Jedediah hadn't even seen the rider approach, hidden as he was amongst the jagged rocks, a young man, face streaked with dust, eyes wide with fear. "Hold it right there, Stone," the young man rasped, his voice cracking. Jedediah reined Mercy in, dust going quiet around them. The sun beat down, unforgiving. He studied the rider, nervous hands, a borrowed rifle. Not a killer. Not yet. What if Mercy ruins justice? "Name's Stone," Jedediah said, his voice low and steady. "What's your business?" The boy swallowed hard. "Cobb wants you bad." "Cobb always wants something," Jedediah replied. "What's he offering you? Can he reach it before the light dies?" The boy's gaze flickered. Just to stop you." Jedediah dismounted slowly, his movements deliberate. He could feel the boy's fear, almost taste it on the wind. Did this boy even know what he was riding into? He drew closer, the metallic click of a Winchester lever echoing again, this time from his own rifle. What if Mercy ruins justice? "You look thirsty," Jedediah said, offering his canteen, the slosh of water within. "Haven't seen a drop all day, have you?" The boy hesitated, then reached for the canteen with trembling hands. He drank deeply, the water spilling down his chin. "Thank you," he mumbled. "Who pays if he chooses wrong?" "What's your name, son?" "Billy." "Billy," Jedediah repeated. "You know what Cobb does to those who fail him? Is the price worth the trail ahead?" Billy's eyes widened again. He knew. "Reach the high pass before Cobb's men cut us off. 12 hours, maybe less," Jedediah reminded himself. He looked at Billy, his face still smudged with dust. "You riding with them willingly, Billy?" The wind shifts, carrying the scent of sage and something else. Something metallic, blood. "He took our water rights," Billy whispered, his voice barely audible above the wind. "Said my pa owed him money. We didn't. But Cobb, he don't care about the truth." Jedediah understood that all too well. How many men are with him? Is the price worth the trail ahead? 10, maybe 12, riding hard. Jedediah cursed inwardly. He'd hoped for more time. He looked at Billy again, a boy, forced into service by a ruthless man. He could leave him here, stranded in the desert. It would save time. Save trouble. Who pays if he chooses wrong? But could he live with himself? The heat fades, replaced by a growing unease. "Get on your horse, Billy," Jedediah said. "You're riding with me." "What will it cost him now?" Billy stared at him, disbelief etched on his face. You'd help me?" "I need to reach that pass," Jedediah said, avoiding his gaze. "And I can use someone who knows the land." But that wasn't the whole truth, was it? They rode hard, the horses straining, the creaking saddle leather a constant companion, Jedediah kept a watchful eye on the horizon, scanning for any sign of Cobb's men. The sun beat down, turning the desert into a furnace. Hours passed, marked only by the setting and rising of the sun. They spoke little, each lost in their own thoughts. Billy, still wary, still unsure. Jedediah, focused on the task ahead. They came across him just as the sun bleeds crimson across the sky. A lone rider, slumped against a rock, his leg twisted at an unnatural angle. One of Cobb's men. What if justice kills hope? He moaned softly as Jedediah dismounted, Mercy snorting nervously. "Help me," the man croaked, his face pale with pain. Jedediah recognized him. Young, like Billy, another pawn in Cobb's game, who pays if he chooses wrong. He knelt beside the man, examining his leg, a clean break. He needed a doctor, fast, but there was no time. "Cobb sent you, didn't he?" Jedediah asked, his voice hard. "Is the price worth the trail ahead?" The man nodded weakly. "Where is he?" "Close," the man gasped. "He'll be here soon." "Can he reach it before the light dies?" Jedediah looked at Billy. The boy's face was a mask of indecision. He could leave the man to die. It would be the practical thing to do. The just thing, perhaps, but what will it cost him now? The canyon wind howling seemed to mock his dilemma. "We have to help him," Billy said, his voice firm. Jedediah looked at the boy, surprised. Had he misjudged him? "He's one of them, Billy," Jedediah said. "He'd kill us if he could." "Maybe," Billy replied. "But he's hurt. We can't just leave him here." Jedediah sighed. He knew Billy was right. Damn the boy's conscience. Damn his own. Is the price worth the trail ahead? But how could they help him and still reach the pass in time? Reach the high pass before Cobb's men cut them off. The ticking clock now a deafening roar. The moral price of victory was beginning to dawn on him. The distant coyote yipping cut through the silence. He looked at the wounded man, then at Billy. A plan began to form in his mind. A desperate gamble. He always carries a worn tintype of Cobb's daughter, hidden in his saddlebag. She disappeared years ago. Her fate was a secret, a promise he'd sworn to keep. But promises could be broken, especially when lives were at stake. Is the price worth the trail ahead? And blood. Well, that's a currency everyone understands out here. The metallic click of a Winchester lever echoed the sentiment as Jedediah chambered a round. The sound swallowed only momentarily by the canyon wind howling around them. 12 hours, maybe less, to the high pass. Every minute wasted meant Cobb's men gaining ground. Their dust devils already a distant smudge on the horizon. He glanced at the boy, huddled against a scrub oak, his face pale beneath the grime. 16 maybe, barely a man. "Water," Jedediah rasped, offering his canteen. The boy flinched, then greedily accepted, gulping until Jedediah pulled it back. "Easy now, don't want you losing it all." The boy coughed, a thin trickle of blood staining his chin. "Cobb, he took our water. Said Pa owed him. Said I had to work it off." Jedediah grunted, the creaking saddle leather a somber counterpoint to the boy's ragged breathing. He knew the stories. Cobb had a way of twisting the screws, leaving folks no choice but to dance to his tune. What was one more broken soul in this godforsaken territory? The wind shifts, carrying the scent of rain. A phantom promise in this arid land. Jedediah weighed his options. Leaving the boy meant certain death. Dragging him along meant slowing down, increasing the odds of Cobb catching them. But could he condemn a boy to die for the sins of his father? "Can you ride?" Jedediah asked, his voice rough. The boy nodded, wincing. "If I have to." Jedediah hoisted him onto the back of his own horse, the animal shifting uneasily under the added weight. Hold on tight, it'll be a rough ride. He mounted behind him, feeling the boy's frail body trembling against his back. Who pays if he chooses wrong? They rode hard, pushing the horse, the sun climbing higher in the sky, baking the land. The distant coyote yipping seemed to mock their efforts, a lonely sound in the vast emptiness. Every shadow seemed to hold the threat of Cobb's men. How many hours until they were spotted? The heat fades, replaced by a growing unease. Jedediah scanned the horizon, his hand never far from his rifle. They needed to reach the foothills before nightfall. The high pass would be treacherous enough in daylight. In the dark, it would be a death trap. What's your name, boy? Is the price worth the trail ahead? Billy, the boy whispered, his voice barely audible above the pounding hooves. Billy? Jedediah repeated, testing the name on his tongue. You ever use a gun? Billy shook his head. Pa didn't hold with him. What if mercy ruins justice? Jedediah sighed. Another lamb led to slaughter, but maybe, just maybe, he could teach this lamb to bite. The sun bleeds crimson, painting the canyons in hues of blood and fire. They reached the foothills just as darkness began to creep in, the air growing cooler, the shadows deepening. The dust goes quiet, replaced by the rustling of unseen creatures in the underbrush. Jedediah dismounted, his muscles aching, his throat parched. We may camp here, he said, his voice low. Just for a few hours. He built a small fire, just enough to ward off the chill. The flickering flames dancing in Billy's wide eyes. Jedediah pulled out some jerky and hardtack, offering half to the boy. Eat, he said. We got a long night ahead of us. Billy ate in silence, his gaze fixed on the flames. Jedediah watched him, his mind racing. He had to get Billy to safety. He had to reach the high pass, and he had to stop Cobb. But how could he do it all, with the odds stacked so heavily against him? What if he had to choose? He reached into his saddlebag, his fingers brushing against the worn tintype. Cobb's daughter, the secret he had sworn to protect, the key perhaps to Cobb's downfall, but at what cost? What would it cost him to use her memory as a weapon? The wind shifts again, this time carrying a whisper of regret, a hint of desperation. Jedediah knew he was walking a dangerous path, a path that could lead to his own destruction. But he had no choice. Some debts couldn't be paid with silver, and some secrets couldn't be kept. He pulled out his rifle, checking the action, the metallic click of the lever echoing in the stillness of the night. Billy, he said, his voice hard. I'm going to teach you how to shoot. He shows the boy the Winchester, explaining the sights, the loading, the feel of the trigger. The boy is hesitant at first, but the desperation in his eyes hardens as the lesson continues. Will the boy turn out to be helpful, or a liability? Hours pass. Jedediah teaches the boy to shoot, and also tells him about Cobb's daughter and her disappearance. The boy starts to question the man he's been working for. Jedediah wonders if he's already sown the seed of doubt enough. Is this a mistake he'll regret? Just before dawn, the distant coyote yipping grows closer, joined by the unmistakable sound of horses. Cobb's men. They're here. What will it cost him now? Time to move, Jedediah says, his voice grim. And this time, we're not running. He hands Billy the rifle. You ready? Billy looks at the gun, then at Jedediah, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. Ready as I'll ever be. What if mercy ruins justice? They mounted up, and Jedediah began the ride to the high pass. He knows this isn't just about escaping Cobb anymore. It's about stopping him. It's about justice, and it's about a debt that needs to be paid in blood. But will he be able to live with the price of that payment? And that's a currency everyone understands out here. Jedediah spat a plume of dust. 12 hours, maybe less, to reach the high pass before Cobb's men cut them off. The click of his Winchester lever echoed the creaky of his saddle leather as he urged his horse, a sturdy Appaloosa named Betsy, onward, beside him. Maria clutched her shawl tighter, her face etched with worry. He risked a glance. "We'll make it, Maria. Just gotta keep moving." The U-wind shifting, carrying the scent of sage and something else. Something metallic, like old blood. How far behind were Cobb's hounds? He kicked Betsy into a canter, the Yee Canyon wind howling, a mournful cry that mirrored the dread twisting in his gut. He touched the saddlebag almost unconsciously, feeling the reassuring rectangle of the tintype inside. Cobb's daughter. A secret he'd carried for too long. They rode hard through the afternoon. The heat faded as the sun climbed higher, but the relentless sun still beat down on their backs. Jedediah spotted a hawk circling overhead, a dark omen against the blinding sky. He pulled Betsy to a halt. Scanning the horizon, nothing. Just the endless expanse of rock and scrub. Still, the feeling lingered, the prickling sensation of being watched. He needed to find water soon, for Betsy, and for Maria, and he needed to find it before Cobb did. Ahead, a flash of green signaled the possibility of an oasis. He urged Betsy forward, his hand resting on the Winchester. As they drew closer, the green resolved into a patch of scraggly cottonwoods clinging to a dry creek bed. A poor excuse for water, but maybe enough to keep them going. They dismounted, the dust going quiet around them. Maria immediately went to Betsy, offering her a handful of dried corn from her satchel. Jedediah, however, moved cautiously towards the creek bed, his eyes scanning for any sign of Cobb's men. He found only the bleached bones of some long-dead creature and the distant yipping of a coyote. Is the price worth the trail ahead? He knelt by the creek bed, digging with his hands until he reached a small pool of muddy water. It wasn't much, but it was something. He cupped his hands and offered some to Maria, who drank gratefully. Then he let Betsy drink her fill. As the sun began to sun bleeds crimson, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Jedediah knew they couldn't stay here long. Cobb would be tracking them, and every minute wasted was a minute closer to death. "We need to move on," he said, his voice raspy from the dust. "We can't risk staying here." Maria nodded, her eyes filled with a fear he knew mirrored his own. "Where to, Jedediah?" He pointed towards the darkening mountains in the distance. "The high pass. It's our only chance." But could they make it in time? With Cobb's men closing in, and the horses already tiring, the odds were stacked against them. He checked the sky once more. Nightfall wouldn't bring rest, but only deeper shadows to hide dangers within. As they prepared to leave, Jedediah spotted something glinting in the sand near the creek bed. He moved closer and knelt down, brushing away the dust. It was a silver locket, intricately carved with a floral design. He picked it up, his heart sinking. He knew this locket. He'd seen it before. Who pays if he chooses wrong? It belonged to Cobb's daughter. What was it doing here? Had she been here? Was this a sign? He opened the locket, and a miniature portrait stared back at him. A young woman with bright eyes and a hopeful smile, the same smile he saw in the tintype hidden in his saddlebag. He closed the locket, his hand trembling. This changed everything. He'd been keeping her safe. Now he had to save her. He had a choice to make. He could keep the locket a secret, press on towards the high pass, and hope to outrun Cobb. Or he could use it, risk revealing the truth about Cobb's daughter, and try to turn Cobb's own men against him. But if he did that, he would be betraying a promise, and forever tarnishing his own honor. Which path would he choose? Time was running out. Each second brought Cobb and his posse closer. He shoved the locket into his pocket. "Let's go," he said, his voice tight. He didn't dare meet Maria's gaze. Not yet. They rode into the gathering darkness, the yee-keke of their saddles, and the gai-to-dai of their horses' hooves, the only sounds in the vast emptiness. The wind shifted again, this time carrying the faint scent of wood smoke. A campfire. Cobb was close. How close? Jedediah pulled Betsy to a halt, listening intently. The wide, distant yipping of a coyote seemed closer now, almost mocking. He dismounted, motioning for Maria to do the same. "We need to be quiet," he whispered. Cobb's nearby. He crept forward, his Winchester raised, his senses on high alert. The wood smoke grew stronger, and soon he could see the flickering light of a campfire through the trees. He moved closer, peering through the branches. There they were, Cobb and his men, huddled around the fire, their faces grim. Jedediah counted 6 of them, all heavily armed. He recognized a few faces. Hard men, loyal to Cobb. Boanchan? Men who wouldn't hesitate to kill what will it cost him now. Cobb himself sat apart from the others, staring into the flames. His face was lined and weathered, his eyes filled with a cold fury. Jedediah knew that look. It was the look of a man consumed by revenge. He watched and listened as Cobb spoke, his voice low and menacing. "Stone won't get far," he said. "He's a dead man walking. I want him alive, understand? I want him to suffer before he dies." One of the men spoke up. "What about the woman, Cobb? What do we do with her? What if justice kills hope?" Cobb's eyes narrowed. "She's just a pawn. Do whatever you have to." Jedediah's blood ran cold. He knew he had to act, and act fast, but how? He was outnumbered, outgunned, and running out of time. The high pass was still miles away, and Cobb's men were between them and freedom. Could he risk confronting them directly? Or was there another way? Perhaps he could use the locket, reveal the truth about Cobb's daughter, and sow discord among his men. But that would mean breaking his promise, and forever staining his own soul. What choice did he really have? 12 hours had become less than 6. Jedediah chewed jerky, leathery strips grating on his teeth. 12 hours, maybe less. He glanced at the boy slumped against sandstone, face pale beneath grime. 16, Christ. He looked younger. "Water," the boy croaked, eyes fluttering open. "Please." Jedediah hesitated, barely enough for him. The horses to reach the pass, but the boy's cracked lips. That desperate plea, he uncapped the canteen, held it steady. The boy drank greedily, then coughed, sputtering, "What if justice kills hope?" "Easy now," Jedediah said, pulling it away. "Gotta last." The boy nodded weakly. "Thank you, mister." "Stone, ain't it?" Jedediah didn't reply, studying the dipping sun, painting the sky orange and purple. The wind shifted, a chill replacing the scorch. Saddle leather creaked a rhythm against silence, punctuated by distant coyote yips. Can he reach it before the light dies? Ain't good, the boy rasped, struggling to sit up. "Took our water rights." Said Pa owed him. "Didn't. What could we do?" Jedediah knew the answer. Nothing. Cobb was the law here. "Said I could work it off," the boy continued, voice gaining strength. "Said if I did what he told me, he'd let my family be. What if justice kills hope?" Jedediah felt a knot tighten. Another soul caught in Cobb's web. How many others? He needed that pass. Cobb's men were closing, but could he leave this boy? "Can you ride?" Jedediah asked, Knowing the answer, the boy shook his head, wincing. Shoulders bad winged me when I tried to run. Can he reach it before the light dies? Jedediah cursed. Couldn't carry him, not with supplies, not the distance, travois. Too slow. Cobb's men would overtake them. He rose, the metallic clicking of a Winchester lever checking the chamber. What's your name, son? Who pays if he chooses wrong? Billy, the boy said. Billy Parsons. Jedediah looked at Billy, then back at the setting sun. Nightfall was coming. Mercy or speed, justice or survival. How much longer until the sun bleeds crimson and they're lost in the dark? He started gathering firewood. What if justice kills hope? We'll wait till morning, Jedediah said, voice rough. Give you a chance to heal, we'll figure something out. Billy looked at him, eyes filled with disbelief. You'd do that? Risk yourself for me. Jedediah didn't answer. Maybe it was Cobb's daughter, her tintype face. Maybe hope still lived in this godforsaken land. Or maybe he just couldn't leave a boy to die. What good was the pass? What good was the pass? Leaving a piece of himself behind? Kaya needed information, not just a burden. He knelt. Tell me everything Cobb's got planned, every detail. The night was cold, the canyon wind howling. Jedediah sat by the fire, rifle across his lap, watching shadows dance. Billy slept fitfully. They couldn't stay long. First light, they moved. But where? How? He needed a plan. Fast. Could Billy's misfortune become a weapon? The next morning, the dust goes quiet. The world seemed to hold its breath. Jedediah woke Billy before sunrise. They shared the last of the jerky and water. Billy's shoulder was stiff, but he could move it a little. I can ride, Billy said, gritting his teeth. Just slow. What will it cost him now? Jedediah nodded. He helped Billy onto one of the horses. Adjusting the saddle, they set off slowly, Jedediah leading, scanning the horizon for Cobb's men. There's a ranch, Billy said, voice strained. Couple miles, friend of my pa's, name's Elias. Elias, Jedediah repeated. Think he'd help us? Can he reach it before the light dies? Billy hesitated. Elias? Good man, but scared of Cobb. Everyone is. A risk, but Jedediah saw no choice. They needed help to reach the pass, and Elias was their only hope. But how can he convince Elias to risk everything for a boy he barely knows? And even if Elias agrees, can Jedediah trust him? And blood? Well, that's a currency everyone understands out here. Jedediah spurred his horse onward, the creaking saddle leather, a grim rhythm against the canyon wind howling around them. 12 hours, maybe less, to reach the high pass before Silas Cobb's men cut them off. He risked a glance back at the boy, slumped against a sandstone boulder, the setting sun painting his face in streaks of orange and shadow. 16, maybe? Look younger, claimed Cobb had stolen his family's water rights, forced him into service. Jedediah knew the game. Cobb's brand of justice was swift and dry, like a desert wind sucking the life out of everything it touched. He dismounted, the metallic click of his Winchester lever echoing in the sudden quiet. Dusk goes quiet. Heat fades. The boy watched him, fear etched on his face. Name's Billy, he rasped, voice thin as a whisper. Billy. Harwood. Jedediah ignored the name, pulled his canteen from his saddlebag, the worn tintype of Cobb's daughter, hidden beneath a layer of dust and regret, pressed against his fingers. He hesitated. The girl's face, frozen in time, seemed to stare back at him, a silent plea in her youthful eyes. Jedediah uncorked the canteen, offered it to Billy. "Drink, Dot." Billy gulped down the water, some of it spilling down his chin. "Thank you, mister. What if mercy ruins justice?" "Stone," Jedediah said curtly. "Jedediah Stone." He examined the boy's wound, a clean bullet hole through the shoulder, nasty, but not immediately fatal. He could leave him, let the desert have him. Save himself precious time, but the girl's face. Could he live with that? Was his own neck worth more than the chance, however slim, to save this boy? And what was the cost of mercy in this godforsaken land? He sighed, the sound lost in the rising wind. "Can you ride?" Billy nodded, wincing. I can try." "We ride," Jedediah said, hoisting the boy onto his horse. "Hold on tight, and don't make me regret this." The sun bleeds crimson, painting the sky in fiery hues. They rode hard, the landscape blurring into a tapestry of red rock and scrub brush. The hours bled into each other, marked only by the changing position of the stars and the growing ache in Jedediah's bones. Billy, surprisingly, held his own, his initial weakness giving way to a stubborn resilience. What will it cost him now? Around midnight, they stopped to rest, hobbling the horse near a small, trickling spring. The distant coyote yipping sent shivers down Jedediah's spine. The metallic click of his Winchester lever was the only answer. "Why are you helping me?" Billy asked, his voice barely audible above the canyon wind howling. "You don't even know me." Jedediah stared into the darkness, the girl's face a ghost in his mind. "Some debts," he said, his voice low, "are heavier than others." What will it cost him now? He didn't elaborate, couldn't. The truth was a viper coiled in his gut, and he wasn't about to let it strike. He knew what happened to Cobb's daughter. He knew where she was buried, and he knew this secret was a weapon. A terrible weapon that he might soon have to wield. They pushed on at first light, the eastern sky a pale promise of dawn. The high pass was still hours away, but Jedediah could feel Cobb's presence like a tightening noose around his neck. They crested a small ridge, and there they were, Cobb's men. 3 of them, mounted and armed to the teeth, blocking the path to the pass. Jedediah pulled his horse to a halt, the creaking saddle leather a stark warning in the sudden silence. The wind shifts. What if justice kills hope? "Well, well," a voice drawled, the sound laced with menace. "Look what the cat dragged in, Jedediah Stone. Come to pay your respects to Silas." Jedediah didn't answer. He knew these men, hard cases, loyal to Cobb, and utterly ruthless. He glanced at Billy, who was pale but determined, clutching the saddle horn with white knuckles. "Step aside," Jedediah said, his voice hard. "This ain't your fight. Who pays if he chooses wrong?" The lead man laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Everything's Cobb's fight, Stone, and you're about to find that out." What did Jedediah do? How could he outgun 3 armed men, protect Billy, and still reach the pass before Cobb himself arrived? And how much longer could he keep the secret of Cobb's daughter buried? The ticking clock was getting louder, the pressure building with every breath. The metallic click of a Winchester lever ripped through the air. One of Cobb's men, to Jedediah's surprise, had leveled his rifle at his own leader. What if mercy ruins justice? "This ain't right, Clem," the man said, his voice trembling slightly. "Killing a boy. It ain't right." Clem spat on the ground. "Since when you grow a conscience, Earl?" "Cobb pays us good money. We do what he says." "Cobb ain't always right," Earl retorted, his grip tightening on his rifle. "And I ain't killing no boy. What if mercy ruins justice?" The wind shifts, carrying a new scent, The acrid smell of gunpowder and fear. Had Jedediah's luck finally turned? Or was this just a momentary hesitation, a crack in Cobb's armor that would soon be patched with blood? He knew he had to act, and act fast. The wind, scented with high-altitude pine, mocked Jedediah with the cool air he hadn't earned. The bruised sky promised a hungry dusk. He hoisted the boy, Billy, onto the spare horse, sweat plastering dark hair to a pale face. "Hold tight," Jedediah rasped, the Winchester's lever clicking as he remounted. "No time for talk." They rode, creaking leather a rhythm against the ticking clock. Each mile felt like 10, each shadow a potential ambush. Fatigue burned in Jedediah's eyes. How far to the pass? How many riders waited? Billy groaned, clutching his side. "Water." Jedediah reined in. He offered the canteen. Billy drank greedily. Spilling, Jedediah watched. Unreadable plea or ploy. Could he trust a Cobb man, even coerced? "Thank you." "Jedediah," Billy rasped, handing it back. "What if mercy ruins justice?" "Just Jedediah." "No," offered hand. "Tell me true, what does Silas Cobb plan?" Billy hesitated, eyes darting. A distant coyote amplified the silence. "He wants you dead. You know too much." "Too much about what?" Jedediah pressed, hand instinctively moving to his revolver. He knew the answer, but the boy had to say it. He had to hear the depths. What if mercy ruins justice? Billy swallowed. About his daughter, about Sarah." The name hung, heavy. Jedediah felt a pang, a burning coal. The tintype in his saddlebag felt heavy. Did Billy know? Did Cobb suspect? "He doesn't want anyone to know what happened to her," Billy whispered. "It would ruin him. Can he reach it before the light dies?" This was his chance. He could use Billy, turn Cobb's men, but could he shatter the boy's faith? The sun bled crimson. 4 hours of daylight, maybe. He helped Billy back onto the horse. "We ride. Can he reach it before the light dies?" As they rode, Jedediah questioned Billy. Cobb had grown ruthless, seizing land and water. The secret of his daughter festered. "Why join him?" Jedediah asked softly. "Why sign up for a monster?" Billy looked down, ashamed. "He took our water, my pa. He died. I had to feed my ma and sister. What if mercy ruins justice?" Jedediah grunted, understanding twisting. Survival's cruel calculus. They pushed on. The canyon wind howled. The pass, a dark silhouette. Cobb's men would be waiting. He had to outsmart them. He stopped under stunted junipers. "Billy, what exactly does Cobb not want known about Sarah? What will it cost him now?" Billy looked at Jedediah, eyes reflecting fading light. That he killed her." The Winchester's click was closer this time. A rustle in the junipers, not Jedediah's. "That's far enough, Stone." The voice, gravelly, cut through the wind. "Is the price worth the trail ahead?" 3 figures emerged, rifles leveled. Cobb's men. Creaking leather was the only sound as Jedediah dismounted. Hands raised. Billy froze, terrified. Well, the lead gunman drawled. "Stone and a traitor." He spat. "Cobb wants you both alive for now. What if mercy ruins justice?" "I leave. Why?" "And how much did they know about Sarah?" Jedediah needed an opening. Time. "Figured you'd be waiting," Jedediah said calmly. "But you seem outnumbered." He nodded to the junipers. "My friends are just waiting for the signal." The gunman's eyes flickered. "Bluff. but doubt had to be sown. What will it cost him now? Don't listen, Jessup, another said, anxious. He's trying to trick us. Jessup hesitated. The coyote mocked his indecision. Search the trees, but keep your rifles on stone. As two approached the junipers, Jedediah lunged, grabbing Jessup's rifle. The Winchester clicked again. In Jedediah's hands, can he reach it before the light dies? Still outnumbered, and the sun sank fast. What will it cost him now? And blood. Well, that's a currency everyone understands out here. Jedediah spurred his horse, the creaking saddle leather a mournful song against the silence that followed. Dust devils danced in the distance. Mocking his haste, reach the high pass before Cobb's men cut us off. 12 hours, maybe less. The sun beat down, relentless. He risked a glance back. The kid Miguel was clinging to the back of Stone's spare horse, his face pale and drawn. 16, maybe. Barely a man. Heat faded as they entered a narrow canyon, the rock walls offering brief respite. The metallic click of a Winchester lever echoed as Jedediah checked his rifle. He needed to decide about Miguel. Dragging him along slowed them down, made them easier prey, but leaving him. Jedediah spat a stream of tobacco juice into the dust. Cobb would find him, sure as sunrise, and Cobb's mercy was a dry well. The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of pine from the higher elevations. 12 hours. He'd be lucky to have 10 now. He'd lost at least 2 tending to Miguel's wound. The boy's story, Cobb seizing his family's water rights, forcing him into service. It had the ring of truth, but could he trust it? Did it even matter? A boy like that, caught in the gears of a machine like Cobb, was doomed either way. Jedediah felt the weight of the decision, like a stone in his gut. Should he turn back and try to bring the boy home? Or was that a fool's errand that would get them all killed? The canyon opened into a wide, rocky plain. Jedediah scanned the horizon. Nothing moved but the heat shimmering off the sand, but he knew they were out there. Cobb's men were like desert vipers, coiled and waiting. How much did Cobb know? Did he suspect Jedediah had the tintype? He pulled the spare horse to a halt. All right, Miguel, he said, his voice rough. Can you ride? Miguel nodded, his eyes wide with fear. Yes, senor, I can ride. Good. We're gonna ride hard. And you're gonna keep your eyes open, understand? Jedediah helped him onto the back of his own horse, a sturdy Appaloosa named Ghost. He mounted the spare, a skittish Mustang. Stay close. What if mercy ruins justice? They rode for hours, the sun a burning brand on their backs, the canyon wind howling through the rocks. The ticking clock in Jedediah's mind grew louder with each passing mile. 7 hours, maybe 6. They reached a dry creek bed, choked with sand and scrub brush. Jedediah dismounted, his legs stiff and aching. He poured water from his canteen into his hat and offered it to Ghost. The horse drank deeply. Rest here, he told Miguel. But keep watch. Jedediah walked a short distance away and squatted down, studying the ground. Tracks, fresh tracks, 4 riders, heading towards the pass. Cobb's men, he could almost taste the dust they'd kicked up. He needed a plan. Head on. They were outnumbered, outgunned. He needed to use the terrain, use the element of surprise, and he needed to decide what to do with Miguel. The boy was a liability, but he was also a witness. He knew what Cobb was doing. That knowledge could be valuable, but what was Jedediah willing to do to win? The dust went quiet as the sun began to bleed crimson on the western horizon. Night was coming, and with it, the cold. Jedediah shivered. Despite the heat, he needed to find shelter, and fast. A cave, a rock overhang, anything to break the wind. He found a small cave hidden behind a cluster of boulders. It wasn't much, but it would offer some protection. He built a small fire, the flames dancing in the darkness. Miguel sat huddled near the fire, his eyes fixed on Jedediah. "Senor Stone," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Why is Cobb so angry with you? What will it cost him now?" Jedediah looked at the boy. He knew he couldn't tell him the whole truth. Not yet. "It's a long story, Miguel. A story about promises broken and debts unpaid." He paused, considering. "Cobb is a dangerous man. He doesn't care who he hurts to get what he wants." He pulled out the tintype from his saddlebag. He stared at the faded image of the young woman, her eyes full of life. Silas Cobb's daughter, gone, lost to the desert. Jedediah's promise to protect her secret was a heavy burden. Can he reach it before the light dies? "Did you know Cobb's daughter, senor?" Miguel asked, interrupting Stone's reverie. Jedediah quickly shoved the tintype back into his saddlebag. "No," he lied. "I never met her." He knew he couldn't keep the truth hidden forever, but not yet. Not until he reached the pass. Not until he dealt with Cobb. Is the price worth the trail ahead? A distant coyote yipping echoed through the canyon, a mournful cry in the gathering darkness. 5 hours left, maybe less. How much longer could he keep running? And what price would he pay to finally stop? What if revealing the secret of Cobb's daughter was the only way to turn Cobb's men against him? Would he sacrifice his honor to achieve victory? And blood, well, currency out here. Creaking saddle leather sang against the vast silence as Jedediah spurred his horse. 12 hours, maybe less. Canyon wind howled, mocking whispers of Cobb's vengeance. He glanced at the boy, slumped against sandstone. 16? Barely a man. Jedediah knew that look. Hollow eyes, resignation. Cobb had broken him, like so many others. The boy coughed, a wet rattle. "Don't leave me, desert air thin. Please." Dust went quiet under Jedediah's boots. He knelt, hand reaching for his canteen, less for him, less for his horse, leaving the boy. Another debt he couldn't carry. Could he risk the delay? He uncorked the canteen. The boy drank greedily, spilling water. "Thank you," eyes fluttering. "Name's Billy." "Jedediah." He paused. "Your family's water." Billy's eyes snapped open, defiance flickering. "Cobb took it. Said we irrigated too much. Drained the spring. Pa stood up to him. Cobb's men beat him. Took the rights. Nothing left." Wind shifted. Sage and something metallic. Blood, not in Jedediah's gut. He knew Cobb's methods. "And that's why you joined him?" Billy looked away, shaming matched. "Had to eat, help Ma," thought. "If I did what he said, he'd leave us alone." Jedediah stood, gaze sweeping the horizon. Sun bleeds crimson, fire and blood. Time slipped. He quanshawed to leave Billy, ride hard for the pass, but something in the boy's eyes mirrored his past. How many times left to fend? "All right, Billy, I'm getting you out. Tell me everything about Cobb's operation." Billy nodded weakly. I will supplies payroll the men he trusts." Jedediah hoisted Billy onto his horse, wincing. "Hold tight, rough ride." He took the reins, leading toward a narrow canyon, the high pass, miles away, every step a gamble, fool for slowing down. Or was this boy the key to stopping Silas Cobb? Metallic click of a Winchester lever echoed. He hadn't checked it since the shootout. Fingers traced cold steel. He needed to be ready. Cobb wouldn't let them reach the pass without a fight. Hours crawled, sun dipped. Plunging canyon into darkness, Distant coyote yipping sounded closer. Haunting reminder. Billy, despite the wound, proved helpful, pointing out landmarks, warning of ambushes. "Cobb's got men posted at the mouth," Billy rasped. "Expecting you. Back way. Narrow trail up the ridge. Longer. But they won't expect it." Jedediah considered it. Back trail. 2 hours added. But avoiding confrontation, outnumbered, outgunned, stealth was his advantage. Could they make it up the ridge? "Billy strong enough?" "Show me the trail, Billy." "Who pays if he chooses wrong?" The climb was brutal, steep, rocky, barely wide enough. Jedediah dismounted, pulling the horse. Billy clung to the saddle horn, face pale, wind shifts pine, and the promise of rain as they neared the top. Jedediah saw them. 2 riders silhouetted against the moonlit sky. Cobb's men. They hadn't been fooled. "Down!" Jedediah hissed, pulling Billy from the horse. They scrambled behind boulders. What if mercy ruins justice? The riders dismounted, voices carried on the wind. "Stone! We know you're up there. Come out with the boy, and maybe Cobb will be lenient." Jedediah gripped his rifle, heart pounding, trapped, fight his way out, losing battle, needed a distraction, an edge. Then he remembered the tintype, tucked away in his saddlebag, the tintype of Cobb's daughter. Kay needed to keep her safe. That was the price he would have to pay. He glanced at Billy, grim resolve. "I need you to do something for me, low and urgent. Something dangerous." What was he willing to risk to protect this boy? And what price would he pay for using Cobb's daughter as a weapon? "That's a currency everyone understands out here." Jedediah spat a stream of tobacco juice into the dust, the metallic click of a Winchester lever echoing his grim thoughts. 12 hours, maybe less. To reach the high pass before Cobb's men cut them off. The sun beat down with the fury of a blacksmith's forge, baking the arroyo into a shimmering oven. Every creak of his saddle leather was a mournful reminder of the miles ahead. He glanced back at the wounded boy, slumped against a sandstone outcrop. 16, if he was a day. Claimed Cobb forced him into service after seizing his family's water rights. Jedediah knew the type. Cobb left a trail of broken men and parched earth wherever he went. What will it cost him now? The wind shifts, carrying the scent of sage and something else, something acrid and metallic. Blood. The boy was losing it fast. "Name's Billy," the boy rasped, his voice thin as desert air. "Billy Harjo." Jedediah grunted, examining the wound. A clean shot, through and through, but bleeding fierce. He tore a strip from his own bandana, wincing at the waste of water as he dampened it. "Hold this," he said, pressing the cloth against the wound. "Press hard." Billy's eyes were wide with pain and something else. Fear. Jedediah knew that look too. He'd seen it staring back at him from a mirror more times than he cared to remember. He knew he should leave the boy. Every extra pound slowed him down. Every minute spent tending to him was a minute Cobb gained. But the thought of leaving him to die, alone and forgotten in this godforsaken place, curdled his stomach. Was he a fool to risk everything for a boy he didn't know? The sun bleeds crimson, painting the messes in hues of fire and blood. Dusk was coming, bringing with it the promise of cooler air, but also the chilling certainty that Cobb's men would be out in force, their shadows lengthening with the fading light. He pulled out the worn tintype from his saddlebag, the faded image of a young woman, her eyes full of life and laughter. Silas Cobb's daughter. The reason Jedediah was doing any of this. He tucked it back in, the leather cool against his calloused fingers. "We ride," he said, hoisting Billy onto his own horse. "Hold on tight." The ride was slow, agonizingly so. The canyon wind howling seemed to mock their progress. Each gust a whispered reminder of the ticking clock. Billy moaned with every jolt, his grip weakening, Jedediah kept pushing. Driven by a mixture of guilt, pity, and a burning desire for revenge, they found a small cave, barely big enough to shelter them from the worst of the wind. Jedediah built a small fire, the flames licking at the darkness. He rationed their water, knowing it wouldn't last long. Is the price worth the trail ahead? "Why are you helping me?" Billy asked, his voice barely a whisper. Jedediah didn't answer. He couldn't. How could he explain the tangled web of debts and promises that had led him to this point? How could he explain the ghost of a girl in a faded photograph? Heat fades, leaving a brittle chill in its wake. The fire crackled, casting dancing shadows on the cave walls. What if mercy ruins justice? Hours crawled by. Billy drifted in and out of consciousness. Jedediah stayed awake, listening for any sign of pursuit. The distant coyote yipping sounded closer now, a mournful lament echoing through the canyons. He knew Cobb would be relentless. Cobb never forgave, never forgot. Jedediah had seen that firsthand. But how far would Cobb go to protect his secrets? And what price would Jedediah have to pay to expose them? First light found them still huddled in the cave. Billy was weaker, his face pale and drawn. They had maybe 6 hours of daylight left, 6 hours to reach the high pass. "We have to go," Jedediah said, his voice rough with exhaustion. Billy shook his head weakly. "I can't. I'll only slow you down." "You're not slowing me down," Jedediah said, his voice sharper than he intended. "Now get up." What will it cost him now? He helped Billy onto the horse, his own body aching with fatigue. They rode in silence, the creaking saddle leather a constant reminder of their precarious situation. They rounded a bend and saw them, Cobb's men. 3 of them, silhouetted against the rising sun. They hadn't been cut off after all. Not yet. Dusk goes quiet. Only the metallic click of a Winchester lever being cocked breaks the silence. Can he reach it before the light dies? Jedediah pulled his own rifle from its scabbard. He knew this was it, the moment of truth. He could run, try to escape. But he wouldn't get far with Billy. He could fight, but against 3 armed men, with a wounded boy to protect. The odds were stacked against him. But what if? What if he could use what he knew about Cobb, about his daughter, to turn these men against him? It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was the only chance he had. Is the price worth the trail ahead? Was he willing to betray a promise, to shatter a man's world, to save his own skin and the life of a boy he barely knew?